Sports.
Look, I've been too gloomy about the 49ers today. Everything's going to be fine. It's going to be another fantastic season. Right?
Mr. Optimist over
Talking
here,
to Mike
right?
Holmgren today. Coach Holmgren says, they're a really good team. You miss a few guys. It's tough. Okay? It's tough. But they're a very talented team. They'll be back. I was wondering, though, and we got Amil Fragoso coming up. Is Sean McVay a better coach than Kyle Shanahan?
Has a Super Bowl. He has a Super Bowl, right? He got hardware.
He does. He's been to 2. He's won 1.
Yeah. I would say probably yes.
The thing is about him, and we'll talk with Amil Fragoso joining us now, SactownSports.com, 49er Insider. What do you think of that question, Amil? Is Sean McVay a better coach than Kyle Shanahan?
Well, if the end goal is Super Bowl rings,
The thing is,
yes, Tyler.
I've never been very critical of Kyle Shanahan. He's so dour all the time, you know.
Yeah.
And Sean McVay's like, "Hey, come on," and he gets mad at his guys. He screams at guys, but he's excited and he's positive and like, "Oh yeah." And Kyle's
he seems to have. I don't want to say a better relationship, but a different relationship.
Definitely more
with
upbeat, more positive energy, right?
I feel like Kyle has a coach-player relationship, and Sean McVay. I don't know, but Kyle's hangs out with the guys. They had the party at, I don't know. It's a different vibe, though. Yeah.
But the thing with the Rams, remember, they won that Super Bowl, and they they mortgaged their future, right, to win that Super Bowl. Then they had one bad year, and then they were back in the playoffs the next year.
Up. Yeah, and they're, a much better team this year, I think, than people are going to give them credit for. I think they're going to be in the mix, 9-10 wins this season.
Really?
Yeah, I think the Rams are better than,
to me, they're so injured, it's hard to tell what they are.
They just beat the Niners.
I know.
All injured. If we're going to give the Niners the benefit of the doubt when they get healthy and they get whole, how come we can't give the Rams that same benefit of the doubt?
They played well, no question. Do we? Yeah.
We got Amil.
Can you hear me, guys?
Hey,
there we go.
Sorry about that, Amil.
You got a protest beard going on until the Niners win. You're not shaving? Like, what the hell's happening there, man?
Dave gave me crap yesterday, too, when I came into the office. He was like, he was subtly saying, man, I don't mean to be rude, but clean it up. And so I guess I got to get right before week 4, I guess. So I'm going to go see my barber tomorrow, actually.
Who's the better coach, Amil? Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan?
Well, to answer your Drapes' thought too, again, if it's off Super Bowl rings, if the main goal is to win titles, then Sean McVay right now is the better head coach because again, he has the one ring, and not only that, he did it in this first year with his franchise quarterback in Matthew Stafford. Kyle's had a few years now in 2 different regimes, multiple coaches, different quarterbacks, and yet just hasn't been able to get it done. So that's the big hang up is that they talk about all the time about how the Niners have won a lot of big games, but they haven't won the big game. And that's the reality is they haven't won the big game. And until they do, there's going to be all these lingering questions.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it, and here's the thing about Sean McVay. He really only had one down year. It was really only, that the year after the Super Bowl.
They won a freaking Super Bowl.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And, they lost a lot of players when he was 5-12. But other than that, every other season, he's been above 500. Every other season, he's had this team, at least challenging for a playoff.
They hadn't had a winning record since, 2003? And then he comes in his first year, 2017, was it?
Yeah, 2017, 11-5. Yeah, 11-5.
Same year as Kyle, same year as Shannahan. McVay was a part of that as well, too. So,
no, you're right about that, Whitey. I'm looking at the results now. Their last winning year, you're right. You got to go back. 2003, they were 12-4.
I shouldn't have opened up
they were 8-8.
Pandora's box.
No, I'm just I'm in a deep dive right here. We can stay on this forever. No, let's switch gears though. Let's switch gears. What can you tell us about CMC this trip to Germany? What's your read on all this? How does this make you feel?
That Christian McCaffrey is trying to do everything possible to get back as soon as possible, and that means trying alternative methods of rehabilitation for his Achilles tendonitis right now, which I believe is a bit more severe than they are letting on, just because of what's happening right now. I believe that potentially they may have found deterioration of that Achilles tendon more so than inflammation, and that's why he's going to Germany to get treatment done. We don't know exactly what that treatment is. Obviously, we've seen NBA athletes go to Germany and get that done. LeBron, Kobe in years past. So my guess is that he's looking at alternative stuff right now and that he is looking to get back this season. Hopefully by the team's bye week is kind of the goal for him, I believe.
Amil, the way the 49ers couched that injury, and, that's their right. It makes me, it alarms me when you hear about like Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's back is sore. He had an MRI. He's fine.
Yeah.
Who knows? So what do you think? Do you think Niner fans should be concerned at all about Brock Purdy's back?
No, Brock Purdy more so has a sore back from carrying the team right now because Brock Purdy has been putting the shoulders on, putting on the offense for right now, and he's been doing a good job and he's been taking care of business. I mean, it wasn't Brock's fault that Ronnie Bell didn't make that catch. He made the right throws down the stretch there, and they just weren't able to get it done as a team. And yet Brock still came to the defense of Ronnie Bell right after in the post game. That's a true leader. Brock Purdy, I think for all the critics that give him crap over the years and have said he's assistant quarterback, the game manager, whatnot, I think week 3, even against a depleted Rams team that, yes, they are missing a lot of players on both offense and defense, Brock Purdy balled out. Brock Purdy showed the world that he is much more than just stick my superstars out there and I'm going to make a good throw. He made throws to guys that you didn't expect him to. And he had Juwan Jennings, who many people didn't know was this talented. Many people thought he was the third best guy, just a run blocking wide receiver, a solid team player. They had the best connection of all, not the superstar they just paid in Brandon Ayuk. It was Brock Purdy and Juwan Jennings that got the job done for most of the day. So I think not only did Juwan have a great game, Brock Purdy silenced some doubters. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right about that. Amil Fragoso joining us. Amil, what's the impact of the Hargrave injury going forward for this Niners defense?
Yeah, it's absolutely massive, Kyle. Honestly, this team is already, their defensive line was probably one of the weakest units they've had under Kyle Shannahan in the last few years. It was very top heavy this year. Losing Chase Young, losing a couple other rotational guys, and this happens every year for the Niners. They lose rotation guys, they get them back, and they get young guys, they draft them, they do well. But it was also heightened by the fact that Kalia Davis, their third-year guy, is coming off of knee issues right now as well. And he will be back at some point this season. But that's a guy they were really looking to, contribute in year 3 with the Niners. And they were looking for him to be kind of in that DJ Jones role a few years ago that now is the Denver Broncos and just be a really solid contributor. And that's a guy they don't have right now. And so now they're down to potentially putting Yetur Gross-Matos, who plays the outside, but they signed him because of his versatility. So now he will likely slot into the inside. Leonard Floyd and Nick Bosa will stay on the outside, and it'll be both Gross-Matos and Malik Collins, who I think has been one of the more underrated signings they've had this year, trades, I should say, they've had this year, the Niners. And so it's going to be a bunch of team effort, but if they can't get home on the pass rush, it's going to be a long, long season for this Niner defense.
Yeah, and they didn't get as much pressure as a lot of people thought they would last week. Amil Fragoso, is Brandon Ayuk, is he not getting open? Is Brock not throwing him the ball? Is the defense able to shut him down because Debo's not there? What do you think is going on right now with Brandon Ayuk's relative lack of production?
It's rust, Whitey. Honestly, it's football rust. And this happens every year with the Niner disgruntled star player that holds out and on contract demands and lingers into the season. You saw it last year with Nick Bosa. You saw it the year earlier with Deebo Samuel. They're just not the same in that contract year because of all the emotional and psychological tolls it has on a player to negotiate with the 49ers for a massive contract extension. Even though Brandon Ayuk eventually, came back to the table and eventually did sign that offer they had out there in the middle of August, it took a lot for it to get done. And it was very much at the 5-yard line, I should say, of him being traded. This was a reality that Brandon Ayuk was about to be traded, if not for Kyle Shanahan going, wait, let's talk it over one more time. Brandon kind of changed his mind, it seems. And that's why they had that story about him running up to John Lynch to go talk to him. He wasn't answering his phone because they were at one point content with trading Brandon Ayuk for picks and then trying to figure out as the season goes. At this point in time, obviously in hindsight, they're glad they didn't because of all the injuries they've had on the offense. But even then, Brandon's not the same player right now. He's still trying to figure out where he is mentally in this offense. And yes, he is still the star receiver. He still is Brandon Ayuk, but maybe the adjustment from being the guy that came up to now you are the unequivocal star, the $30 million guy. It hasn't clicked over to him yet on the field. I believe it will click over for him at some point this season, but it will take longer than expected. And right now the Niners need him to be that guy, and he just hasn't been so far.
Juwan Jennings, real deal or just broken clock being right on a given day? Like, is he a guy now that can be a number 2 receiver, maybe even be a number 1 if IU continues to struggle?
Hey, look, the Niners locked him down to a 2-year, $15 million extension this offseason. That's looking like some shrewd business right now. That man, Juwan Jennings, forget third and Juwan. We should just call him Big Play Jay, because that's all that man made was big plays on Sunday against the Rams. I mean, that catch over the top of Quentin Lake. I mean, Randy Moss, it was an echelons of Randy Moss there. That was just special. Anything that was going his way was getting caught. And I think, again, like I brought up earlier, people gave Juwan some stick for being a 7th-round pick out of Tennessee, being a former quarterback that is transitioning over to wide receiver. And you saw glimpses of this talent in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. You saw him have that big play. He was going to be Super Bowl MVP if not for the Chiefs coming back in that game. And so it's not a full surprise that Juwan had this in them. It was more so that it came all at once in the biggest stage possible for him in a primetime spot in an afternoon game against a division rival.
Amil, why does the defense seem to get shredded at the worst possible moments?
That's a great question, because a lot of us covering this Niners team this year, watching them through training camp, especially the secondary, and I was one of those believers, thought this was going to be one of the better groups in the last couple of years. I thought the Niners had gotten back to basics. They had figured out what they were good at, which is rushing the passer and being aggressive. Well, it's also a first-year defensive coordinator, Nick Sorensen. And Nick Sorensen's learning on the fly, and he's deferring to Kyle Shannahan, who likes to have both control of the offense and the defense, and they're kind of still trying to figure it out. And they also brought in Brandon Staley, an assistant coach now, who is a former head coach. So there's a lot of brilliant football minds in that room that they just haven't been able to mesh it together. And it's really interesting, actually, because we were talking with Chris Forster, the run game coordinator, last week, and we were talking about the offensive line not clicking right now, right? So he brought up a story from 2015, and as most Niner fans know infamously, that was the Jim Tom Sula year, the 1 year. And he brought up a story about that season, basically, that they had a bunch of offensive meetings, and one of his assistants thought the offense was going to be really good. Well, once they had a pass game meeting, they had all the coaches come in, and everyone had different ideas. No one could figure out how to mesh together, and they were not very good that year. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like a lot of similarities are happening this season, where there are some new ideas coming in. They're trying to figure out what works and what can we fix and what can we go. And it's early on, but things aren't looking good right now. And the Niners, even last season or even 2021 or 2022, they don't lose games like week 3. And that's a culmination of them not all being on the same page right now.
Amil Fragoso for great 49er coverage. Check him out, sactownsports.com. Thanks, Amil. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Mm-hmm. When we come back, how about that letter to Ace fans from John Fisher? You want to get into that, Drapes?
Yeah, let's do it.
We will do it next. Sactown Sports.
Model year and price.